it's the end of July now, with pre-season friendlies completed and the close season drawing to an end. As always, the Hoops and Dreams team are reviewing what has happened, hopefully discussing what matters and looking forward to what is coming. My guests for this first podcast of the new season are James, who rather fittingly was also one of my guests on the close of season podcast as well, but more importantly runs the Hoops and Dreams QPR Forum. So I've got to keep in with him. Welcome, James.
Thanks, Brian.
And not to confuse you anymore, Jamie, who is a contributor on the Hoops and Dreams Forum and is also a past guest. Welcome to you too, Jamie.
How are you doing? Good to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Well, delighted. Let's quickly review who went through the club's revolving doors over the close season. Out went Luke Amos, Stefan Johansson, Mode Shadipo, Rob Dickey, Connor Masterson, Nico Hammerline, and Senny Diang. And out on loan went Murphy Maloney to Swindon. So in to replace them, well, not exactly. We had Taylor Richards, a converted loan. Paul Smith came in from Leyton Orient. Ziad, now I'm going to have trouble with this, Lakesh, that's right. Sorry about that. From Fulham, Asmir Begovic from Everton, Morgan Fox from who's ex-Stoke, and probably, we believe, Jack Colback from Forest. On top of that, we should also mention that Lyndon Dykes decided to stay at QPR when he signed his new contract, for which we're grateful. And Chair, Willock and Parle are still with us too. So first question, I guess, is, was this an interesting transfer market period for the R's? Or was it just a question of sell what you can and get what players you can on the cheap? James?
It's an odd one because I said you mentioned it before the end of season podcast, I said we needed to get rid of as many players as we can just to try and switch the mentality around the club. And you've now seen it in the pre-season friendlies, we're having the same issues. So I don't feel like we've gone far enough. It's a long list of players you just said who've gone out. And that didn't even mention the loan players like Laird, Iwoodunam, Lowe, all them have all gone as well. So it's a massive list of players that we've lost. And have we brought in, I mean, like you say, Paul Smith, Larkesh, Fox, it's a limited amount of players, but in the squad just looks so weak. So as it stands right now, we're having a pretty much disastrous transfer window in my view, because it's not changing the squad to the level we need it to. There's not enough of those players gone who seem to be the problem players, maybe the ones who aren't as committed as Ainsworth wants them to be. It feels like we don't just need one or two more, and it feels to me like we need 5 or 6 and a few more out as well.
Jamie, is that your thoughts as well?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, I'm very, very confused as to what's going on, because my understanding from Gareth Ainsworth himself and from was the culture was the problem, and I think I felt the same way as a lot of other people. I wanted to see most of the team go, most of them, Field, Dykes, I would like to have kept Yang, but really my expectation was that we were going to have a complete change of personnel, my expectation was that we were going to have a championship version of Wickham, that we were going to fill the team with the right sort, with the right attitude, and play, Gazball, which I know most people don't like the idea of, but I was up for it. I mean, I was like, why not? Maybe the time has come. We've done our best. We haven't made it. We've spent a lot of money, and now we have to cut our cloth, and this is what we're going to have to do for a bit. So to see nothing really change. I mean, the last friendly we had, I think most of the players were playing last season. And as James pointed out, we've lost players, but we haven't brought any in, and I don't understand how that's happened. It makes me wonder who was finding the players at Wickham. I don't feel like there's anyone up top at QPR now who's doing the scouting. Does Gareth Ainsworth really know where to find these sorts of players? I don't know, but yeah, I'm confused.
wouldn't you think that Gareth Ainsworth would be the one who could find them, because he's coming from the lower league? He would know the bright stars there quite well, and he'd know where to go and poach them from, you know?
That would have been my expectation, but I maybe that I don't know how he worked. What was he? How many of the squad at Wickham did he fight? The fact that we seem to be attached, the only names that seem to be coming up are like Wickham players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there were any rumours around anyone in League One other than that, I mean, I guess the thing is, most of these League One players are under contract. I guess there aren't that many frees going on. But again, you would have thought that the cost of getting hold of some of these lower league players wouldn't be prohibitive. I mean, if it was me, I was just looking today at I don't know how accurate it is, but this list of players and their weekly wages. I mean, I don't know that I'd be renewing Chris Willock's 12 months. I think I'd let him go and take the 10 grand a week, if that's how much he's on. I don't know if it is, but that's what it says on this website. I'd take that money and, use it to pay for a couple of players, if not more, 3 players from the lower leagues. And how much money do you really need up front to buy them? I don't know the answer to these questions, but I would have thought it was within our remit.
Yeah, I wonder just how, Jamie, I'm just saying to you, really, I guess, I don't know how much FFP has made as a restrictive market for us. James, what do you think?
I've got a concern, that people don't want to join us because of Gareth Ainsworth being the manager. Because we've been linked with a lot of players, and I have a feeling that he has a stigma attached to him. It's already come up in this, Gaz Ball. Do people see now QPR interested? People think they're going to be in a mess this season. They're going to be at the bottom of the league. It's Gareth Ainsworth. No thanks. Because if you look on our forum, the summer transfer thread, there's about 12 pages now of players' names that we've been linked to. And we've signed like 3 or 4 players who would other teams have signed Paul Smith? Would other teams really be looking at Morgan Fox? He got released by a team who only finished 16th, 17th last season. When it feels like we're scraping the barrel and just taking anyone who's desperate enough to join us. And the signs were already there for that last season in January, because the only person we could bring in was Chris Martin, and no one else would have touched him with a barge pole. So we're scraping the barrel. We're now taking people who are 32, 33, and just glad to have them, because we need bodies, and that's all we can seem to get in the door. It's just alarming on every level.
Yeah, I think at this time I should make a point to Gareth. 33 is not the new 23. Right, so let's quickly have a look at the pre-season friendlies. I say quickly because it doesn't make very pleasant viewing. The 5 games that played: Slavia Prague, we lost that 3-0. Zorvats, the following week, we won that 2-1. And then, of course, we went to Wimbledon and drew there 1-1. Then on to Reading. We won that one 2-0. And then it was Oxford United. And the wheels really came off there. We lost that one 5-0. Football is a results-focused industry, of course, as we all know. And even pre-season friendlies need to be accounted for. So if we look at this, there are 7 points out of a possible 15. It doesn't make very pleasant reading, I don't think. And I should remind you at this point, our league position was 20th on 50 points last year. So having said all that, how much should we read into these results, James?
I think you can read a lot into them, honestly. I know it's only pre-season, but I think you can read a lot into it, because we just alluded to it before. It feels like we've got the same mentality in the players. They just don't seem like they're interested. I thought in pre-season I was going to see a team that came out and was like fighting for every ball, running around, covering every blade of grass, what you'd expect from a Gareth Ainsworth team. And literally, you're watching something that you could have been watching in March. It's literally nothing has changed. And the only teams we've beaten, I know you're saying like we've won a few games, but it was like a 3rd division Austrian team and Reading's under 12s. I think that's what it is. So it's not. We went to Wimbledon. As soon as our first half was all right, but as soon as the first team went off, we were abysmal. And that's another thing that the friendlies have highlighted, is that our squad is just so thin. Maybe have got an okay first 11, but beyond that, we have absolutely nothing. And Jamie said before about Lyndon Dykes staying. If he got injured, we have got no one to replace him up front. You might as well say now we're relegated. If Lyndon Dykes got a long-term injury, we are, I don't want to swear, but somewhere without a paddle.
Somewhere up a creek without a paddle,
Yeah.
yes. Jamie, do you feel the same?
Yeah, I think I do, and I think I mean, the Austria games were kind of neither here nor there. I thought Smith looked quite good when he's come on, but he seems to be injured now. I think that looking back at the highlights of Wimbledon, I did watch Wimbledon live, although I have to say I found it quite hard to pay attention to it. I didn't think it was very interesting to watch. But watching the highlights again, again, our goal comes from a defensive error and Dykes, getting onto it, and that doesn't happen a lot. That's going to happen once or twice a season. So we didn't. If you take that out of it, we didn't score. And if you look at the highlights, a lot of the highlights are Wimbledon having a go. And I just, to go back to the points we were making before, it all looks so, FIFA 90, whatever. It looks like a video game with Willock, Richardson chair behind Dykes. It sounds so exciting. It's just going to be great. But it's kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters. It's not real. It doesn't actually have any backbone to it, which is the problem that we've had for years now, is a lack of backbone. So yeah, I think the if you look at, I mean, so I thought the Oxford result was sort of coming. I thought the okay stuff that I saw in the previous pre-season friendlies was shown up at Oxford, and I at the big when the end of the season came, I was one of the ones who was very optimistic. I was like, we're going to be all right. We're going to turn this around. We're going to get siege mentality. It's going to be like, Greece in the 2004 Euros. It's going to be fantastic. But now I can't see a way out of it. I don't know what has to happen to stem the bleeding.
And this is what happens when Jamie comes off his medication.
Can I add something on Oxford as well, right? Oxford were as bad as us in the second half of last season. They had a terrible second half of the season and were lucky to get relegated just like us.
Yes.
And you could see that Liam Manning over the summer, he's managed to implement a plan, a style, a way of playing. He's got an ethic around the players. He's signed players to suit his team. What has Ainsworth done in that time? Because you can compare the two clubs. There's a very similar last 6 months. Over the summer, I said it before, nothing seems to have changed with QPR. Apart from Begovic, it's the same players as last season. So what are we expecting to be any different? He said as well, after the first friendly loss, it was Slavia Prague's first. They'd been a few weeks ahead of us, and it was only our first game, and it was like it was an excuse. And he said, "Give me pre-season. We've still got 3 or 4 more weeks." Those 3 or 4 weeks have passed, and we seem to have actually got worse. So again, it's just frightening.
Yeah, I think you alluded to no, you did. You mentioned about the fact that we were better in the first half on most of the games and on other ones when the development players came in. We were definitely struggling. There's no doubt about it. And that does show the lack of depth that we've got. So yeah, I think that's a major problem. I mean, the reason that you're doing these pre-seasons and why they do matter, I think, is twofold really. What you're after is moving closer to match fitness, of course, but you're also looking to combine as a team to meld that team into something worthwhile. I mean, injuries to Clark Salter and to Smith, plus Fox being that far behind in terms of his match fitness, have meant that we've not seen their potential, but more importantly, they've not gelled with their teammates. Then you add into that the defeats against Slavia Prague and Oxford, and you need to worry that this team is really not ready for championship level football. Perhaps it will never be ready because despite having players with talent, it has players whose championship capabilities are questionable, I think. So let's move on from that quickly before we all start getting too depressed. So did those pre-season friendlies provide any insight into our style of play for this season? Jamie, start with you first this time.
Well, as I say, The only highlights I could see of that second Austria game were highlights. That no one saw the game because the film crew didn't turn up, did they? But the highlights, I saw a bit of stuff that I thought, direct play that I thought would work, with Smith and Adoma, I think, and even because he's had quite a lot of stick. Dazelle, looked like he made sense in that game a little bit when he was passing it out to the wing and then they were crossing it in. That all seemed to make a lot of sense. So, if that could happen, then that's a style of play that I could see working. What I cannot see working is this, dream team, three up front with Dykes in front of them. Richards, the very first preseason game, Richards scuffed, had an opportunity in the middle of the park to pass it out, I think to Armstrong maybe, and just passed it behind him, and he did it again at Oxford, and you're like, well, that's just not going to work. That's not, you've got to be able to pass the ball in front of the person you're passing it to.
Particularly with Armstrong with his speed. You've got to,
again, I know that Chair and Willock like to play close to each other, and I know there's been some comments about why you're putting them on either wing, but equally they are both fantastic dribblers, and if they can't make something happen, I don't know what to say. So that style of play, that didn't work last season, and it's not going to work this season. So I'd quite like to see one of Willock and Chair leave, and bring in more players, wide, pacey players, and go direct as we were promised it would be.
Yeah, we did think that. James?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the people who's been banging the drum of why have they got Willock and Chair on opposite wings. I just find that madness, because if I became manager of QPR, the first, or anyone who becomes manager of QPR should be thinking, right, Willock and Chair, how do I get the best out of them? That is literally the key to getting the best out of QPR. How you link the play from defence to attack, how you get them in the spaces. So to put one on one side, one on the other, where they literally can't even do the little interchanges at all unless one of them is completely out of position, and then you're going to get destroyed down that side. I just don't understand that. Obviously, there's a bit of a plan now to play with wingers and get crosses into Dykes. Against Oxford, we literally did not put one cross into the box.
Yeah.
And it's the plan. He's the only man in there, so you've got to be so accurate with your crosses anyway, because he's not playing with anyone that close to him. Jamie touched on Richards. He fell over the ball, didn't he, at the weekend, jumped out of a challenge. I don't know what he's bringing to the table. So, yeah, the plan seems to be get it to wingers, but it doesn't suit Willock or Chair to really play in those roles. And you're asking a lot of Dykes to be the one man in the box, getting on the end of everything. I don't quite understand what is happening there. Obviously, he wants a style of play where people are fighting for the ball, but I don't think the players are with him at all. He said in one of his interviews, didn't he, that he wanted the players to learn about each other and know about their families and stuff, so that when you've got them with you on the pitch, you want to fight for him because you know him and you know what he's going through and all that kind of stuff. And I just think our players are just not having it at all, because they're not bothered. You just tell them that even Willock, I know we all think he's one of our better players, I've just said it then, but he'd be better off gone now, wouldn't he? Because he's not fighting for QPR. It was obvious in the last 3-4 months of last season. So you either get the best out of him, or you're just going to have to let him go. I mean, Jamie even said it before. Do you just release him? Do you just let him go and use that money on players who actually want to play for QPR week in, week out, rather than having someone who you feel like you need to use him because he's a good player, but then he's just a passenger and letting the team down. So, again, what do you say on every level? It's just a problem, isn't there?
Okay. I can't disagree with anything that either of you two have said on this. I mean, the formation does look as though it's going to be a back four with two in the holding and three in the middle, forming like I suppose you're saying, an attack triangle. Trident of Richards in the middle and Chair and Willock on either side, and with Dykes up front. And I agree with you. Unless they're playing together, Chair and Willock in inside right, inside left type positions, you don't get the best interaction out of them. It's therefore become so reliant upon having decent backs who can sprint up and back down all day long, providing those essential crosses or essential passes interchange with Cher and Willock. You're not going to get anything out of this. Now, so there you're reliant upon Kayak. Both the Kakai and Lakash, both of those are going to be required to run up and down like lemons or Pal, and provide that service. I don't see this happening, to be quite honest. And they're not going to be playing out from the back. So therefore, you're dependent upon the midfield gaining some sort of superiority in the air, which they've never had before, or getting those all-important second touches on the long balls so that they can then carry on the attack. Again, I haven't got that much faith in that either. So, yeah, like you, I am a bit worried about our style of play. Right. Can we identify any strengths or weaknesses from the performances that we've seen to date? Start with you, James, I think, on this one.
How long have you got? Right. Major problem is Kakai at right back. To me, if I took over, I'd literally we need a right back. First thing, I don't know we need centre halves, but that's mainly down to injuries. Long term, we need a right back. We've basically been struggling there now since Darnell Furlong left. Rangel was a stopgap. Moses Adebayo just proved to be too injury prone, didn't he? And all along, Kakai's been there. I think Kakai started the first match of the season under Steve McLaren. That was like 5 years ago, and you assume he's going to start again this season.
Yeah.
He's never improving, so a major issue there. We've got to get a better long-term solution at right back, because Kakai, I feel so harsh saying it, but he's almost, I feel he's getting worse. He just doesn't do the basics. He doesn't close down to stop crosses, and he's just not the answer there. Centre halves, we need major reinforcements at the back. Clark Salter, we've tied ourselves down there for X amount of years, and he's proved himself. He's just a liability to the club now. He's probably on a big wage as well. Left back, I'm not even a massive fan of Pal. And then I think I even suspect Pal could maybe be moved into midfield. This Larkesh, we don't know much about him. Central midfield, I don't personally understand why we've let Luke Amos go, because he was a good age. I know he was injury prone, but at least he had some future potential. Now we literally have got Field and Dazelle, and beyond that, we're playing people who are just completely untested at this level. So you're talking about squad weaknesses. We were talking about the friendlies. Then the kids who are coming on, this is going to seem incredibly harsh as well, but they seemed miles and miles and miles away from where we need them to be to come in and do a job for us. They were verging on like hopeless. I mean, especially against Oxford. Oxford were just ripping us apart once we made a few changes, and it's like scary, because I talked before about if Dykes got injured, we'd have to replace him with Armstrong, who's never scored a goal for the first team in a first team game. You've got Smith injury prone and unproven at this level. When he was here last time, 2 different managers didn't really fancy him and they released him. Is he really that much better now? He looked bright in the friendlies, but can he get fit? Charlie Kelman works hard. We've just got no squad depth. The kids as well, I know this is probably a different point, but these are the players that we're supposed to be developing to then help us get out of this FFP hell in a few years' time, so we can actually develop someone and sell them. But these are players that I don't think in 2 years are going to be good enough to play for QPR. So,
Yeah,
okay. Thank you for the strengths. Jamie, would you like to try and find some strengths?
Try and be positive. It's really hard. It really is. I mean, I haven't seen enough of him yet. I thought the left back we bought was, I can't pronounce his name either, but the left back, Arkesh, I thought was a good purchase. I'm happy to have Paul Smith back. At what little I've seen of him, I thought he was a good addition.
About 5'6", I think.
I still like Kenneth Powell. I think we have been done over by just some almighty bad transfers before this season. I mean, how we've committed to Taylor Richards and Jake Clark-Salter. And again, for the amount of time and the amount of money that they're costing. given the other mistakes that we've made, not selling people soon enough, and other money that we've spent which hasn't worked. I mean, I do, the strength. So the strength, I suppose, the strength is this is probably going to be as bad as it's going to get. I think we're going to, I think we're going to have to, scrub up and start again. And I think the fact, that Les left, and Ferdinand, Les left, and who was our owner, for heaven's sake?
Tony Fernandez.
Tony Ferdinand. He's gone as well, and so there are rumours around. I think we're looking for a reboot here.
It might happen.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone deserves any medals for what, the scouting department, the board, whoever's making the signings, they have not done a great job over the last few years. So I think this is the outcome, and I guess the positive is, that assuming we don't go out of business, that you can start again and maybe get it right the next time.
Yeah, I think we if we look back upon the pre-season friendlies, we shipped 10 goals and we only scored 5. That in itself says an awful lot. We were fielding development players, so were they, I'm sure. So I think what we got here is a back four that is struggling, and an attack which is still carrying on struggling from last season. Nothing's changed there at all. I think you're both right. We've got big problems, I think, with that. Okay.
The other positive is we've still got a few more weeks of the, to get some more players in.
Yeah, we have, but there's going to be they'll be on loan, won't they? I'm sure this is the way it's going to go. Okay, that brings us on to next season's fixtures and our opponents. We can all go on about how tough the championship is to survive in, but I actually think this is by far the worst, toughest challenge we've got ever for QPR. If you think about it, we've got Leeds, Leicester and Southampton who are demoted, and Ipswich, Plymouth and Sheffield Wednesday have been promoted. So, James, do you think it's really a tough one? Am I right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it is the toughest standards in this league. It's the wrong time for us to be having a bad time, that's for sure. And you look at the league now, there's so few teams who haven't been in the Premier League. So everyone thinks it's their right to be a challenging team and up at the top. And you've got teams who like Norwich and Watford who only came down a year ago. If you look at most predictions now, people think they're going to be like mid-table, and they're teams with good parachute payments. And I think it's going to be so hard for us. You can't really look beyond the 3 teams who came down for teams who might go back up again. Then you add Middlesbrough into the mix, and it's just such a tough league. Very, very hard. The away trips, we start with 4 out of 5 matches away from home. Doesn't do us any favours either, does it?
No. I mean, Jamie, if what we're talking about here, I guess, is trying to shore up your defence and then get the odd goal to go away 1-0 away from home at least, and if maybe even at home that might be the plan. Is that what you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure I buy the. Yes, it's a tough year. There are a lot of good teams in there, but I'm not. When my expectation was that we would just avoid relegation. That's what we were here to do, and I don't think it's got a lot harder to do that. There are still a good 8 teams, I would say, that are going to struggle. Cardiff's going to struggle. Hull, I'm not convinced by. Ipswich, I have no idea what they're like, but they're a promoted team. All the promoted teams, are going to struggle. Then there's Preston, who I don't think are going to have a great run. Rotherham are there, and as we said, Watford and West Brom, they may have all these resources, but they are on the slide, and they are. They are having a hard time as well, so they get attable. So this is why it's so depressing that we're in the state we're in, because I think if you just put together a scrapping team that with a plan, as James said at the beginning, a plan, a style of play, everyone being on the same page, with the right attitude, I don't think this league would be so hard in terms of at least staying up. I think the total chaos that's happened over the summer is kind of unacceptable, because we're making ourselves a target for relegation, when in fact I don't think it would have been that hard to find 3 other teams worse than us if we got our act together. So I mean there's still time for that to be the case. I'm not, obviously getting promoted, that's hard. Getting into the top 6, I've never seen a harder Championship bunch of teams, but to not get relegated, I still think is within our power. There's still eight or 10 teams there that aren't that good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I must admit, I cringed a little when Gareth Ainsworth repeated to me just how difficult it was going to be this season. I almost wanted him to pretend that it was a great opportunity for our club or something like that, or our moment, something like that, rather than tell how it is. However, the truth really is that we are hamstrung by FFP, which has meant we should be trying to sell the quality players and buy in cheap. And that buying in cheap should be with quality players. But that process it really is fraught with risk. If the replacements can't come in and adapt quickly or at all, we're really in stuck. Added to that, this season surely will be the most competitive one we've ever had in the Championship. So even more than ever, we'll need to get behind the squad, and the club and the manager. Somehow we've got to become that 12th player at Loftus Road that we always go on about, because they're certainly going to need us. They really are. Right. Quick one from you, Jamie. I know James has already covered this in another podcast, but I have to ask, what do you think of the 2023-24 designs for these shirts?
I love the away kit. I think I've never had a red and black top. Yeah, I might have to invest, but I might need to see a couple of results before I go out and buy that shirt. But no, I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, good. I mean, apart from the collar, I'm not a great lover of the new collars.
No, me neither.
And I know James is neither.
James is wearing it well though today. So,
but I welcome back with open arms the Dennis the Menace kit. I love it. I do love that one. Okay, our final topic is one that really cannot be skipped over, and that's the new training ground. We haven't covered that before. It's open to a great fanfare. It was receiving high praise from the media and the fans alike. So do you think the opening of the training centre and the academy is a major milestone for the club, James?
Undoubtedly so, in terms of hopefully it gives us better long-term prospects. But as I alluded to before, what's the point of having it if you're just going to fill it with 30-plus-year-old players? And from what we've seen, the youth players don't seem as good as we would hope. So it's undoubtedly a positive to have that training ground. It's a good tick in the box. It'll attract players to us, hopefully, you'd like to think. But we've got to do a better job of the development side of it. That's what it's there for, so that in 5-6 years' time, we've hopefully got a better group of young players coming through. There's obviously been a lot of talk over the last couple of years that young players have been leaving us because the rules are terrible, aren't they? Your players can get poached, go to better academies and stuff. Maybe now we'll be able to hold on a few more of them because we can say, look, you're in this building and that's where you can play. And so maybe it'll help with that. But short term, I don't think we're going to be able to use it to the best of our ability.
I think you're right. Jamie, what about you?
What does it? Can anyone tell me? Does it change the grading of our facilities? I remember reading something about the different grades, and does this facility help us move up a grade or not?
No, still it's category 2, isn't it? But it just means everyone's on the same base and the facilities are better and the pitches are better and so on. But I think you have dormitories and places for people to stay to be the category 1.
Yeah, I think there's another phase to come in yet, and that may get us to category 1.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously it looks great, and it is, I think as James said, it's something for the future, really. It's something you need if you want to be taken seriously, but so is good management and good transfer activity.
I was lucky enough to attend the opening, and when I went round on the tour the tour that they organised, really was impressed with the facilities. The amount of detail that's gone into it. QPR now has the best up-to-date facilities in London of all the clubs, I think. And they're offering 9-year-olds upwards a pathway through to that first team. You know, the first team comes in, they turn left, everybody else turns right. But one day you'll be being told you will be on the left, you'll be going left, your car will be parked right outside the front doors, you know, that sort of thing. The club should be strongly applauded for their efforts with overcoming the Warren Farm disappointment and making Heston our new home. That, for me, is the only positive that I've had, in the last 12 months, really, I think. Okay. Reminder that our next 2 games, Watford against QPR, which is the reverse fixture on Saturday, the 5th of August, and Cardiff QPR on Saturday, 12th of August. So both away games, as James alluded to before. We got 4, I think, on the trot. There was no hiding from the fact that the club we love is being restricted. We've got it all pulled together now, and we've really got to somehow make this a fortress. It's up down to all of us as much as them, and I think there can be an awful lot of prayer mats out in the next season. Anyway, our time is up, and all that remains is for me to thank my guests, James and Jamie, for joining me, and you, of course, for watching. Do click on subscribe if you're watching this on our YouTube channel. And do add comments below. We love to hear from you, and we do respond. I'm Brian Fisher, and this was a Hoops and Dreams QPR podcast. Come on, you R's.
We know who we are. You know who we are. We are QPR.